All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. There's still a couple people on here that are logged in that I don't necessarily have a name for. Just an FYI, at the end of this training, I'm going to send you a training completion form. If I didn't get your name, that's kind of your last chance to get on the roster to make sure you get credit for the training. So once you get that training completion form, just make sure you fill it out so that I can get you on the list if I haven't gotten you yet. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the job readiness training. Basically, we've made a lot of changes to the job readiness as of right now, but these are all so open for suggestion. So obviously, you guys have been in the field a long time, and I want to take any kind of input that you have to give very seriously and include it into the job readiness. Anything that's worked for you, anything that's helpful, any kind of tips that you may be able to provide to someone, another employee that may not necessarily have the job readiness down, would be greatly appreciated. And at the end of all the trainings, I'll make sure and review all the information I have and then make any adjustments to what we have so that it's all inclusive, basically. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Just making sure. All right, so just to kind of get into things really quick here, I did send you guys some materials. I don't know if you all got it. Let's just go through those real quick before we start. The different materials that I sent are basically helpful materials that are supposed to guide the process of the job readiness training for you guys, make materials readily available so that it's not as difficult to get what you need together when you have a participant in front of you. So all of the forms, even though they look like a lot of work, they're not necessarily work for you guys. They're to help guide you guys through your job readiness and just provide that extra support and assistance to your participants. The very first thing that you'll see is a job readiness training completion form. Now you guys are already familiar with the job readiness training completion form, but I've updated a little bit. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at this, but it's a little bit different than what it was before. So we're definitely going to review this step by step so that you guys have an idea of what's included and what the requirements are for completion. The other things that you're going to see are some job readiness packets. So there's different packets for different parts of the job readiness. And basically what these packets include is a bunch of different information for you to be able to provide to your participants and to help you guide them through the process. You should have 4 of those. There's the resume building, the job sustainability, the skill development, and the resume. Did I already say that? Sorry. The interview preparation. So if you guys want to look through those, we're also going to go through them in the training, but I sent them early just so that you can have a look at them. And then there's also the training completion form. This should already look kind of familiar to you guys. It's the form that you guys have already been using. Maybe a little tiny bit different, but basically what you're going to be able to do. Welcome, Irenia. Is it Irenia or Irinea? Hope I was close enough. I've got you down, Irinea. So that's what that the Word document is. It's a certificate of completion, and the reason that it's in Word document form is so that you can change the name and put in your date information as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
No.
All right. Sorry, I feel like I'm only talking to one person, but I know you guys can all hear me. Welcome, Diego. All right. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and start from the beginning. So the job readiness training, we're all, some of us are doing job readiness and some of us aren't. If you're doing job readiness and some things are working a little bit better for you than others, please chime in and let us know so that we can share that information across the organization. Basically what our job readiness is for is to help prep our participants for getting into the workforce. For those of you that didn't already know, but my understanding is that most of you are pretty familiar with the process in place. thus far. So for the current job readiness training that we've just updated, there are 4 particular distinct parts. Those also, the packets that we discussed earlier, coincide with these different parts of the job readiness. Skill development and job search, resume building, interview preparation, and job sustainability are those 4 parts. When the participant completes job readiness, they're going to have to at least complete 1 activity from 3 of these different parts. Please let me know if I'm moving too fast or if anybody has any questions, okay? Something that hasn't necessarily changed is some requirements that you have for job readiness, except this time we're going to have to document those requirements because they're going to be something that we're going to be looking for in the quality department. What you're going to include in the file is going to be the job readiness completion form, the certificate that you provide for the participant. You're also going to provide some kind of supportive documentation from the ONET profile that you run on your participants, and also some type of supportive documentation from the financial literacy portion. Is everybody here already familiar with the ONET profile and the financial literacy?
Yes.
Yes. So for the most part, I think you guys already do this already, but now they're going to be requiring documentation in the file. So what it'll look like is it'll just be the completion form. It will have whatever supportive documentation you got from the ONET profile, which could be the profile itself or whatever you provided for the participant. And then whatever supportive documentation you've got from the financial literacy. And then the certificate. So the very first part of the job readiness is going to be skill development and job search. And basically we've kind of tried to break it up into pieces so that it's easy to go step by step with your participants and provide any kind of information that you can to help them through the process. Those different parts are the job search, the participant skills and interests, because even though a participant may not have advance their skills on paper, they might have skills that they don't necessarily know are going to be a benefit to them in the workforce. And we want to kind of help them identify those different skills. So we want to touch bases on their skills and interests to see if any of those coincide with their goals for future career aspirations. Formal training or education. Do they have plans to advance their formal training or their education? Do they want to get a new certification? Do they want to get their GED? Do they want to do do they want to go to college? Is there any kind of aspirations that they have in terms of basically advancing their education? Those are things that we definitely need to look for, and they're a big part of job readiness, especially if somebody is shooting for a high goal that requires them to have those different certifications or degrees. Work-life balance is another one. It's very, very important. We are helping people find jobs, but it's very important that we look into their lifestyles and determine whether the position that we're helping them find is going to be something that they can sustain. Work-life balance is important. Good example of why it's important to check into these different things is, say someone has 5 kids and they want to work nights and they don't have a partner, they're single and they're trying to make it work. Well, there's going to be some positions that aren't necessarily going to fit that lifestyle. So looking into that lifestyle before looking through to job or career advancement is very important, because then we're basically helping people find jobs that they can't keep or don't want to keep because they mess with their lifestyle too much. So those are things that a lot of people don't look into, but we definitely want to look into, especially because the demographics that we're working with definitely need support in some of these areas. We have some videos. That's one thing that I didn't list earlier, and my apologies for that. When I sent out that email, I also included a list of job readiness videos that we already had in our archive. So these are already videos that maybe you guys have already seen. We're still going to look at some of them so that you get an idea of how flexible you can be in terms of videos for job readiness. Some people like to keep it light. Some people try to keep it kind of direct. But the idea is that you guys have a wide array of videos to choose from so that you can make that decision based on your relationship with your participant. So we're just going to watch a couple of these. If you guys have other videos that you're using that I don't have in this archive, please send them to me. I'm happy to add them to our list so that we have more to choose from. And then if you have any suggestions or thoughts or ideas on these videos, just let me know. I'm going to go ahead and play them for you so that you can get an idea of what we're looking at. All right, so that was the very first one. And like I said, these videos might not be for everyone, and I plan to expand this video list by a lot, especially based on the input that you guys give me, so keep it flowing. Here's another one. This one's a little bit more on the funny side, and like I said, it may not be for every participant, but it's definitely one of the options that you can choose.
What's up? I'm
All right, guys, so those are just 2 videos that were just kind of selected out of there for you to get an idea of what you have to work with. There's a couple questions that I want to touch base on that were going on in the chat room during the video. I apologize, guys, for the video. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll make sure to mess with it by the time we get the next ones up so that you guys can hear them. A couple questions that you had going in there. Can everybody hear me now, by the way? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I apologize about that. I'm not sure what happened, but I'll stay on top of it. A couple things that you guys said. DA was talking about some of the tools necessary to complete job readiness for WIOA. Those should be included in here, Diego, and these are just basically tools that should help you complete those requirements. So if there's anything that we're missing out of there that you feel like should be included, please let me know. I'm very new to job readiness as well, and a lot of this was taken from information that we had in the contract and things like that. But if there's anything that you feel that we didn't touch on, let me know. And that way, when we finish all of these trainings, I can make all the necessary changes, okay? In terms of job readiness being required, job readiness is required for all of Help New Mexico's programs other than the foster grandparent program and the senior companion program as of now. So right now, when quality checks your files for completion, they're going to be checking for job readiness in each file. So just make sure that you're doing the job readiness with your participants. The one thing though about that is, I mean, job readiness should be something that comes fairly, job readiness opportunities anyway, should be something that comes very often when we're working with our participants, because a lot of them are looking for advancement. It just can take a little bit more fishing to get the information that you need to help them through the process. So just remember that just sometimes probing your participants a little bit more and getting into detail with them about what their specific goals are might bring you into your job readiness a little bit easier. And let me know if you guys have questions or if I'm moving too fast, okay? Like I was telling you earlier, each part of the job readiness program has a packet to go along with it with supportive information and different activities that you can do with your participant. This is a skill development and job search packet. Included in this is, well, a lot of different things with basic information on them. Quick tips for successful job search is a really big one. A lot of people have difficulty finding positions, especially now that positions are very rare. So anything that can make that job search a little bit easier is going to be an asset to your participant. The quick tips page is something that you can go through with your participant and help them to find different ways to job search other than basically getting on the computer and being stuck with just that. There's different options that they have. And there's a few quick tips that can help them get ready for that job search. Work-life balance tips, like I was saying before, you definitely want to probe your participant for what exactly their needs are from a personal perspective, because like I said, we're going to help them find positions, and if those positions don't fit their lifestyle, they're not going to be a lasting position. Another good example of that would be, say, someone living in a very rural area and wanting to apply for a position that's 30 miles away, but they don't have a vehicle and there's no buses around. Well, that's not something that's going to be sustainable to them. And even though you're going through this job readiness pack or these different job readiness skills with them, that may not be something that comes up if you guys aren't probing and talking to them a little bit more about it. So definitely asking them, what their life is like, what kind of support system they have, how is their transportation, how many kids do they have, so on and so forth, so that you get an idea of what jobs are going to be within reason for them. Goals worksheet. A lot of times we don't write down our goals. Sorry, I went a little bit quicker than I wanted to on that one. A lot of times we don't write out our goals, and writing out your goals can be very, very helpful. And just identifying that you have goals, because a lot of people don't necessarily identify that they have goals within the next year, within the next 5 years, or don't think about it. They're just trying to get through the day. So sometimes writing out those goals and writing out steps to those goals can be very helpful in the job search process and the job readiness process. And like I said, once again, let me know if I'm going too fast and let me know if you can't hear me in that chat room. Another portion of this packet is the basic skills in today's workplace. So this one is really, really important, especially if someone is thinking from changing from one position to another, or they're looking at new positions that they may possibly think they'd be interested in or may want to go to school for. There may be skills that they need to advance, just basic skills that they might not necessarily need a class on or may need a small class on, depending on their situation. It's very important to kind of gauge someone as to what these skills are. So like their basic computer skills, basic math skills, time management and organizational skills, interpersonal skills. It's very important to ask them about these different things because these are things that are needed commonly throughout the workforce, and building on these skills no matter what position they're in is going to assist them. But especially advancing the skills that they're going to need nowadays, like basic computer skills, it's very, very difficult to get a position almost anywhere now without having the very basic computer skills. It's even harder to look for a position if you don't have basic computer skills because most job applications are done online these days. So just gauging your participant to see where they're at in terms of their basic skills is important moving forward, not only for you, but for them. And then, of course, we always put a special area here for special skills and talents because I just want to retouch on the idea that a lot of people have skills and talents that they don't necessarily know are going to benefit them in the workforce. And it's important for us to be able to pull those out so that we can either improve them or explore them a little bit more moving forward. The very next part of the job readiness is resume building. Diego, I know that was something that was included in your question, so please feel free to chime in at any time and let me know if you have any questions about any of this. Basic part of resume building, the format and the format of your resume and your cover letter overall. A lot of people don't know what a resume is, more or less what format it should be in. And even us as case managers assisting our participants, we're not resume experts either. So it's important that we have as many tools as we can to go through that process with the participant and get them as close to what they need as we can. References. A lot of the participants that we're working here may not necessarily have references at all. They may have no experience, no references, especially if they're planning to change into a different workforce, like say they're going from being an agricultural worker to say maybe some office work. They may not have references that are going to follow them through there. So building on that reference sheet is very important. So we included some information on that in the resume building portion. Different resume types. There's different types of resumes for different positions, and we'll look into that a little bit more. Application requirements. A lot of applications are done online, but a lot of times when a participant gets an application, I'm sure there's a lot of positions that they don't apply for specifically because they're intimidated by that application. So it is key to do an application with them or make them or help them get a little bit more comfortable with what applications are going to look like or what wording they can use on an application. So that's also included. And then, of course, there's basic do's and don'ts that you can just basically review with your participant to make them feel more comfortable. Does anybody have any questions? But everybody can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So here is another video. It's basically how to write a resume. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything in this video, but depending on the participant, it may or may not assist you moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Please let me know if you can't hear the video. I think I got it taken care of now. So hopefully this works, and then let me know if there's any questions, guys.
Hi, I'm Mike, and this is my friend Jeff, but you probably know us as the interview guys. Today, Jeff and I are talking about one of the most important requirements for getting a job interview, your resume. Whether you're applying for a job as a cashier at a donut shop like our friend Shirley here, or as the CEO of a major corporation, your resume is an extremely important part of your job search. You wish you were applying for a job here, Jeff. I mean, you come here so much that you may as well work here. What can I say? I'm a bit of a long john guy. A few more of these donuts and you'll be looking more like a wide john guy. Anyway, your resume acts as the first impression with your potential employer and ultimately can be the deciding factor in whether or not you even get an interview. And that's why we decided to give you our top 5 tips for getting the most out of your resume. And make sure you watch this video until the end because we're going to show you exactly how to make sure your resume stands out against all of your competition. So what's the first tip, Mike? Our first resume tip is to keep it simple in terms of design. If your resume looks cluttered and confusing to you, imagine what the hiring manager is going to think, that you're a cluttered and confused employee. You also want to stay away from using any fancy designs and fonts. That means none of your signature smiley faces or hearts, okay, Jeff? Copy that, Mike. Tip number 2 is that you need to include important keywords in your resume. Companies nowadays use digital database technology to scan resumes for important keywords, meaning that if you don't have those keywords in your resume, then your resume won't get put in the yes pile. You can generally find the best keywords to use in the job description. Our third resume tip is to use what we like to call power words. Instead of writing that you worked on this or worked on that, try using more effective vocabulary like implemented, developed, initiated, or executed. These power words will show the potential employer that you are capable and intelligent. Tip number 4 is to remember to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for. Every job you apply for is going to have a unique set of requirements, and you should ensure that your experience and skills are completely aligned with those requirements. You should have a different, unique resume for every job you apply for. And last but not least, tip number 5 is to consider getting professional help. While you're definitely capable of putting together an acceptable resume, in today's grueling job market, sometimes acceptable just isn't enough. It's really important that you stand out, so having a professional writer in your corner will not only save you a ton of time, but also ensure your first impression is a memorable one. Okay, so now you have the tools to ensure that your resume passes all the tests with flying colors and always ends up on the yes pile. But as you know, this is only the first step toward getting a job. The most important step is the next step, and that is acing your job interview. But in order to do that, you're going to need to know how to give perfect answers to the toughest interview questions. But don't worry, because the interview guys have got your back. Because we've prepared a special report that outlines exactly how to prepare perfect answers to every interview question. That's right, we walk you through our proven step-by-step process for giving perfect interview answers in our hugely popular free special report. So to get the special report, simply click the link in the middle of your screen now. We're Jeff and Mike, the interview guys, saying thanks for watching. Now go ahead and click the button on your screen now.
All right, guys, thank you for being patient. It looks like everybody could hear that one. Yay! So that makes me very happy. So you guys don't have to be completely bored going through the video, just watching it talk. Does anybody have any questions about that video? Excuse me. All right, so just moving along, we have the resume building packet, which should assist you with this portion of job readiness. Like I said, guys, we know we're not all perfect at writing resumes. We don't all, like the guy on this video said that if you have the option to pay for someone to write your resume, a lot of us don't have the option to pay for a professional to write a resume. And to a lot of our participants, we are the professionals. So as much materials as we can use to support us will be great. So that's basically what this packet is meant to do, is help you through the resume writing process. So first, very importantly, it explains what a resume is, what the different parts of a resume are, because believe it or not, a lot of people don't necessarily know what a resume is. And that's included on the back of the sheet as well as the rest of the resume description. It also gives a description of what specifically a cover letter is and what format it should be in as well. And this one is also key because if people don't know what a resume is, there's even more people that don't know what a cover letter is. And not all jobs ask for a cover letter, or not, you know, so it's difficult to say on the cover letter, because not all positions, even if you're helping someone apply, are going to require a cover letter. But it's good to know, and it's good to build one with your participant moving forward. there's a sample template of a cover letter. So in the instant that you wanted to sit down and write a cover letter with your participant and you don't necessarily know the format or you're not even comfortable with the format, here is the basic format for a basic cover letter. So you could basically sit down with your participant. You could go over what the cover letter is, what is specifically included in each portion of it, and then you could actually sit down with them and write it with them. If you didn't have the opportunity to do that, you could also just provide them with a packet. You could go over what the cover letter is, and if they're not comfortable with you doing the letter with them, you could have them take this template home and they could try it out themselves and bring it back and go over it with you then. So there's a lot of different options and flexibilities when you're working with this. Did you have a question? No? Okay. um, Next, we include sample templates of different resumes. Most importantly, I wanted to provide a sample template of an agricultural worker resume because a lot of you guys are going to be working with agricultural workers. So it's kind of difficult to gauge what a resume for an agricultural worker is going to look like, especially if you've never done one or if they've never done one. So it's key to have kind of an example for them moving forward so that if they're looking for another agricultural position, they know how to fill out that resume or what the right wording or more comfortable wording is. The one on the right-hand side is a resume for someone with no experience. That's also key. A lot of the participants that we're going to work with are not going to have experience either because they've never had a position in that field or they've never had a position at all. So it's very important to, have a template available for people that don't have experience or don't have as much experience as the next person. Next part of this packet is the application for employment. I picked the most difficult application for employment on here, and that's for a specific reason. Like I said, a lot of the applications that are out there are very confusing, and if you're not used to filling out an application, you're going to be even more confused. So I picked a more difficult application to put into the packet because if you're able to fill this out with your participant, they're not going to be as intimidated when they're looking at some of the worst ones online. So I picked more of a kind of difficult resume so that they can get comfortable with application, so they can get comfortable filling out that application and not be scared to death when they go online and see something similar to it. And this is something that you can sit down with your participants and go through a mock application process with them and get them feeling comfortable doing that. Do's and don'ts, like I always said, it's always important to go over basic do's and don'ts. Sometimes you're going to have the participants that are like, oh, they're just not that into it. I already have a resume, or I don't need one for what I'm doing, or I don't think I want to advance, or I don't even want to work on my job readiness skills at all. That still doesn't mean that we don't have to do it, right? We still have to provide them with the options and the information. So sometimes when you have a participant like that, one of these do's and don'ts sheets can come in real handy. You can give it to them, you can go through it with them and see if any activities arise out of it. But it's key that we at least give them the information and then they have the opportunity moving forward to do what they like with or without our support. The reference sheet, like I was telling you, just basic tips on how to formulate references, especially if you've never had any in the past. And then, of course, there's always that big question on whether or not references should be included with your resume. There's an ongoing fight about this one. I'm definitely on the fence about it, but I do like the idea of a reference page either way. So basically what a reference page is it'll list out all the references, where the references come from, their address or basic contact information. And the reference sheet is good because you don't necessarily have to include it with your resume. You can keep it separate from your resume. You can keep track of your references that you already have on there without having to go back and remember what was the address for this place, where did I know this person from, so on and so forth. Am I spelling their name right? You already have that listed on your reference sheet. And it's something that they can keep with them to keep track of their own references too. So not only does it look really nice when you're giving it to a potential employer, but it's also a way of tracking your references for yourself. And please, like I said, if I'm going too fast or you guys have anything to, any kind of input, please let me know. So the very next part of the job readiness is the interview preparation. This can be one of the crucial points in job readiness because, I mean, a person or a participant can become their own worst enemy in the interview process. And I'm sure we've all had that experience in the past. It's very easy to mess up your own interview just because you're nervous or scared or you're just not prepared for it. So we thought we would expand on the interview preparation part a little bit. What's included in this is basically planning ahead for your resume or for your interview, making sure that you're prepared and that you're comfortable with where you're going, where your resume is at, who you're speaking with, and what information you brought with you. Once again, what to take to an interview. Standard interview questions, because that can be a difficult one, especially if you're doing mock interviewing and you're the case manager. You have to come up with those questions for that participant. So it's very good to have a list of standard interview questions that you can ask them that will actually be relevant to them when they go into that interview. Stress and anxiety tips, that's a big one. And the reason why is a lot of first impressions are everything. We already know that. But a lot of times becoming your own worst enemy in that interview because you're stressed or you're anxious about what's going on happens. So preparing the participant for that can be one of the best things you do for them. Dressing for success. This one's also key because we're working with because of the demographic that we're working with, a lot of people may not have the money to buy what they need to dress for success or what the standard is to dress for success. So our idea is just basic grooming tips and different ways that they can just take care of what they have and still feel comfortable in that interview. And then, of course, basic do's and don'ts. So if you have that participant that just doesn't want anything to do with the job readiness program, which happens, I totally understand that this happens. If that is the case, then you can always go over the do's and don'ts with them at least so that they can take that information and decide what they want to do with it or if they want to ask you about it in the future. Another video that we have, now this video I picked specifically because I definitely do believe in the idea that mock interviews help, and they help a lot, especially when you're dealing with young participants. They're very nervous, and that's what usually kills the interview process is people's nerves. They're nervous about, what they're going to say, what they're going to do. And the idea that practice makes perfect means the same thing when it comes to job readiness. If you have the opportunity to do mock interviews with your participants, I definitely would. Have them act as if they're going to an actual job interview and go through the process with them. And hopefully I've provided the tools that make that process a little bit easier. But here's a video that you can use for your reference, and we can always add to this later as well.
In this week's video, we're going to go over the do's and don'ts of a mock interview. That's coming up. Hey guys, I'm Kim with Snagajob, your #1 source for hourly jobs, and welcome to our weekly advice show. Let's face it, getting a job interview is really exciting, but it could be a little bit nerve-wracking. Like the saying goes, practice makes perfect. So setting up a mock interview before your job interview is a wonderful way to really make sure that you'll bring your A game. So here are a few do's and don'ts of a mock interview to help you out. Do, dress appropriately. Wear professional clothes that you would wear to a real job interview. Don't just roll out of bed.
Oh, geez, what time is it? Oh, all right, let's get this mock interview over with.
Do, prepare like you would for a real job interview. This means bringing copies of your resume and preparing interview questions and answers.
Based on the qualifications for this position and my previous work experience, I think I'd be a great fit for this position.
Don't wing it.
Biggest weaknesses? Wow. Probably my biggest weakness is having too many strengths.
Do, feel free to start over. Now is the time to practice your answers, so if you stumble or make a mistake, gather yourself and start over.
My biggest strengths are I have a strong attention to detail, and let's just start over. Can you ask me that one again?
Don't freak out if you made a mistake.
Well, based on my previous work experience, oh gosh, No.
Do take feedback constructively. Learn from the feedback you receive so you can better prepare for your real job interview.
Thanks for pointing that out. I would have hated if I did that in the real job interview.
Don't take it personally.
I think you could make better eye contact.
What? Me? You weren't even looking at me the entire time. You need better eye contact.
Doing a mock interview before the actual event will help you gain confidence and give you any mistakes that you might need to work on. You'll be that much closer to landing the job. So thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, please let us know so we know to keep making videos like this. And if you have any questions about your job search, ask below and we'll be sure to get.
All right, guys. Have any of you guys ever done mock interviews with any of your participants?
Yes.
And how does that work for you? That's Diego, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Marie, yay. How does it work? Is it, I mean, would you agree it helps?
Yeah, it absolutely helps because, you know, I know here in Real Reba, that's often what we do is they get to interview with their prospective work site, and it really prepares them for what's to come. And, you know, you do run into instances where individuals take things personally, and, you know, some of the mistakes pointed out in that Snag-a-Job video. So you just got to kind of run with it, and as you progressively continue to do it, it gets easier. But I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
Even for us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Diego, 100%. And as a matter of fact, what I've said the last couple of trainings is I did mock interviews so that I could get this job. You know what I mean? And I've been on many interviews in my life, but I still needed them. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and going back to the resume, like for examples of resume, I used the one that got me this job. So
really,
you know, yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, no, which includes and you know, the cover letter, and especially like when you go to Workforce Connections, and most of us work with a lot of our one-stops. Workforce Connections conducts these little in-services that teaches you about interviewing and resume building, and one of the things that is really, and if you've ever been like on a hiring panel, the one thing that separates your resume from everybody else's is that cover letter.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Diego. You're absolutely right, though. It is because, like I said, a lot of jobs don't ask for it. A lot of jobs do not ask for it, but it really, really can pull you out of a crowd if you have it, especially when they're not asking it. And the other thing is that reference page, too. I mean, just to have it available when they ask for it, it can be so helpful. You're absolutely right, Diego. It looks like Marie was saying she does some vocabulary coaching and keywords, and that's absolutely correct. Vocabulary coaching, keywords, things like that definitely can make them feel more comfortable because a lot of people don't know what to say at all when they go in there. And then when they start stumbling and, you know, falling over themselves, then they basically just give up because they freak out. Instead of taking a step back and saying, you know, it's okay for me to ask this question again. It's okay for me to start over if I have to. That's absolutely fine. And doing that mock interview or working with them is going to make that easier. You guys are absolutely right.
Yeah, I think it ultimately prepares that individual for a panel interview because that's usually what's conducted, especially like with the type of businesses that don't require a whole lot of credentials, which is the gaming industry. You know, in New Mexico right now, every interview that's done usually in those entities is done by a panel, and that can be pretty intimidating.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Especially if you're not surrounded by smiling faces, and that's not always the case, right? Everybody's been interviewing all week when you get in there. So if you're coming in on Friday to do that panel interview, you're
at lunch.
Yeah, at lunch.
The 12 o'clock interview.
You are absolutely correct. Thank you guys so much for including yourselves in that too. I love it. Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, we can move forward. And like I said, I know I keep saying this and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I like the idea of us all working together on this because what works for one office may not work for the other, or you guys might run into things like different tips and things that will make it easier for our organization in general. So if you guys have any input, I am very receptive to feedback. And if there's something that can be helpful in this, I want to include it. So even if it's not during the training, if it's something that you want to include after, that's perfectly fine. Just please let me know if there's anything that we're missing or anything that you feel like you might like to see in there. So like every portion of this job readiness, there is a packet. This is the interview preparation packet. Very first thing included in there is just tips for staying calm during your job interview. Because just like Diego was saying and Marie was saying, when people are nervous, they can stand in their own way. And it definitely happens. I know I've done it. And just helping them be calm might be what they need. Even if it's just for one specific portion. So like the be prepared portion. Excuse me, I still have a cough, guys, so just bear with me. The be prepared portion is not necessarily just wake up in the morning, make sure you have a resume or make sure you have a pen on you. But what about driving to the location before and knowing where it is so that you're not freaking out in the morning trying to find it if you're running late? Different things like that, different tips like that can make a whole lot of difference. Using the bathroom. Hey, if you smoke cigarettes, don't smoke a cigarette before you go into your interview. You know, different things like that. Or if you are going to smoke a cigarette, make sure you wash your hands and go in the bathroom and, you know, prepare yourself before you go in. Because even simple things like that, not like I'm against cigarettes and your employer might not necessarily be against cigarettes, but the situation that you're in might make it more difficult. So just different things like that, very simple steps or very simple tips can be useful. Dressing for success, like I said before, a lot of our participants are not going to have the money. Most of our participants are not going to have the money to go out and buy a brand new outfit. Now, if you have the opportunity where you have access to like any kind of work clothing, which I know in some of our communities we do, like we can go find different places where we can get donated things and stuff like that. That's also may not be an opportunity for you if you're in a more rural area. You might not have access to go help somebody find something to wear or something like that, or just not have the funding for it. If that's the case, you want to focus on the other things, right? Basically prep what they already have to help them with that interview. So I know a lot of these grooming tips seem very basic, but believe it or not, they could be very useful. When you come at your participant and you're not saying, hey, you need to wear a suit and tie. If you come at your participant and you're saying, hey, you know, just shave, brush your teeth, make sure you're using mouthwash, so on and so forth, and you kind of list those different things, it can be a little less self-defeating if they don't have the money to dress how they think they should be dressing. Common interview questions. This is both for you guys and the participant. This is something that you can go through with the participant, or it's something that you can use to set up your mock interviews, or you can send it with the participant so they can read over it and then see if they have any questions about any of the questions that are being asked to them or what the best way to respond to it is. One of the things that came up in one of the other trainings is Debbie was asking about the strengths and weaknesses questions that, you know, when she's talking to our participants about explaining their strengths and weaknesses, she has a difficult time explaining to them, you know, how to answer that question or what the best way for them to answer that question is, because it can be very confusing, right? Now that's a question I have too, and I want to get more information on. So that's actually something that I'm working on that will be included. So look for that in here. But just different things like that. Like that's a perfect example of what can come up when you're going through these packets. Do's and don'ts. Once again, we always use do's and don'ts. And like I said, the do's and don'ts keep it very simple for when you have a participant that's just trying to run out the door and doesn't want anything to do with your job readiness that day. Those do's and don'ts come in handy because you can give it to them, you can go through it with them, and you can say, you know, here's this information. If you have any questions, come back to me. But you're still doing your portion of the job readiness, even though they don't want anything to do with it. Does anybody have any questions? I just want to make sure I'm not talking over anybody, okay, guys? So just let me know. Feel free to interrupt me if you need to. Some more mock interview questions for you guys, for them and you, because you just can't go wrong there. And this one is broken up by subject. So you could just basically look at the subject and see, if you're looking for a question on education, you can just look at education and pull one of those questions if you need to. Does anybody have questions about any of that? All right. So next is job sustainability. A lot of job readiness does not necessarily include job sustainability, but I think it's key because once again, it puts us back in that situation where, we're helping people find jobs, but they're not the right jobs for them, or they don't fit their lifestyle, or they don't know how to communicate in that position, or they feel weird about something that's going on, ethically uncomfortable with something that's going on, and they don't necessarily know if they're making the right decisions. Those are all different things that can help you while you're in your job. And part of being ready for your job is being able to sustain a job that you get, right? So different parts of that. I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something? No? Okay. Different parts of that, or your work habits. How can you develop your work habits, make them easier, or I'm sorry, make them more beneficial to you? Ethics, what ethics is, some ethical situations that you may run into. Communicating with management, that's a big one. If you don't feel comfortable communicating with your manager, but yet say you have an idea about how to make something more effective, how to make a process go better, and you can't communicate with your manager, it's going to be very difficult for you to, make your job easier or even move up in that position. So sometimes just being able to communicate effectively and feel comfortable communicating is something that you can look into for your participants. And of course, just so that I don't bore you to death with my voice, I have also included more videos from our long list of videos, so we're going to play these. If you guys have any questions about these or you want to add anything to them, let me know. We're going to start with the workplace habits not to have.
Welcome to News on the Move, brought to you by Cloud and Fire. I'm Rachel Fabiato. Bad habits. We all have them, from the classroom to the bathroom. But when bad habits follow you into the workplace, you can lose your job. What are the worst offenses? Our very own Ted McMichaels is out on the street to find out. Ted.
I'm here on the streets to find the top 10 worst habits in work. And there are some people that are completely unprofessional. And hello, how are you? I'm a reporter, so I'm very popular.
Ted?
Yes, Rachel. So we tracked down several people to give us the top 10 worst habits to have in work. So that's on the roll the tape. So we'll roll the tape. Be my wingman. Hey, hello, blue eyes. We're talking about the worst habits to have in the workplace. What do you think they are?
Talking on the cell phone in front of customers.
Oh, hold on. I'm blowing up. Excuse me. Oh. Hey, what's up? Oh, you got out of jail. That's a good thing.
Being rude to customers.
Giving discounts to your friends when you're not supposed to. Using slang or gang talk in front of customers and taking a gang attitude at work.
Word.
Standing around instead of working.
Another bad habit in the workplace.
Arguing with your boss, not taking criticism well.
Not taking criticism well. I have a couple producers I have that problem with.
Assuming everything is because of racism.
I get it all the time, sister.
Using profanity in the workplace.
Oh, get out of here.
Taking things that belong to the company.
Does a stapler count?
Yeah.
So what about a coffee maker?
I think so.
Oh, so I guess a car is right out then.
Definitely.
Just not showing up to work with no excuse, not even calling.
What's the worst excuse you've heard the next day?
I couldn't get a ride.
Couldn't get a ride.
I had to go to a family birthday party.
I had quinceañera practice.
It's pronounced quinceañera, so you're wrong. And you're fired. So double strike. Strike and strike.
My brother went to prison.
That's a great idea. Does it work for Raging Waters? Like my mother went to Raging Waters. No. Theme parks are out.
Fighting with your...
Is this a two-shot?
Fighting with your coworker in front of customers.
Is this a two-shot? Derek, are you doing a two-shot? Can I do I have to do your job too? Huh, Derek? So that's what I got for you today. I missed a couple of the favorites, like alien abduction, my personal favorite, carjacking. That also works. But that's what I got for you.
Ted, that was supposed to be the top 10. I think you gave us about 20.
Yes. Well, I gave you a baker's dozen. I gave you some things to work with. I rounded up because that's what a good employee does. Goes that extra mile.
Remember these baker's dozen bad habits and avoid them at all costs. Talking on the cell phone in front of customers, being rude to customers, giving discounts to your friends, using slang, gang talk, or taking a gang attitude at work, standing around instead of working, arguing and not taking criticism well, assuming racism is the cause of a problem, using profanity, taking things that belong to the company, not coming to work without calling first, and finally, fighting with your coworkers in front of the customers. Although, after today's broadcast, I kind of understand that one. Oh, this just in. Ted, you're fired.
You can't do this to me, not with my mother in a Mexican prison, just waiting to celebrate my sister's quinceanera, and my brother's in prison. You want to fire me? Read between.
That's it for News on the Move. I'm Rachel Fabian. Good night.
I really like that one. That one's pretty funny. And now the next one, just to keep it light again, guys, we're going good on time, so I may have you out a little early. Like I said, let me know if you have questions, okay? Here's another one.
I will go first. When I discovered YouTube, I didn't work for 5 days. I did nothing. I viewed sings Chocolate Rain about 1,000 times.
At the Stanford branch, they all play this World War II video game called Call of Duty, and they're all really into it. I'm told it started as a team-building exercise. Unfortunately, I really suck at it. Oh, we didn't play many video games in Scranton.
I keep various weaponry strategically placed around the office. I saved Jim's life with a can of pepper spray I had Velcroed under my desk. People say, oh, it's dangerous to keep weapons in the home or the workplace. Well, I say, it's better to be hurt by someone you know accidentally than by a stranger on purpose.
Oh, my God.
Got a farewell card for Debbie Brown. I thought maybe you'd like to sign it. Maybe throw a couple of bucks in there for her. She's got some children. I feel terrible about Debbie Brown. She got fired because of Dwight. So I thought I'd pass around a goodbye card. Maybe everyone could put in a couple of bucks to help her through these difficult times. Why do bad things always happen to the good people? It's tragic. It's just tragic.
Hey, Michael.
Can't talk, saving the planet.
Oh, we don't recycle.
You don't? Why have I been separating the trash into whites and colors?
All right. I don't know how many of us are going to be passing out birthday cards next month to try to... I love that one. Okay, so moving forward, of course, we have a job sustainability packet that goes with that. So different parts of the job sustainability packet, of course, work habits to develop. We want to focus on, good and bad work habits, of course, but we definitely also want to focus on developing the work habits we already have, right? So that's something that also is a part of job readiness is development. We all want to see people advance, and we definitely want to see our participant advance. So if there's something that they're good at, take some steps with them to help them get even better. And that's definitely something that you can utilize as an activity with your job sustainability, is helping them to grow in some of the things that they already have. Communicating with management, I definitely wanted to include this because a lot of people have a difficult time or are intimidated by their managers. And so, that can definitely stifle your opportunities to advance, but not only to advance, just to make your job easier. Without that communication there, it's very difficult. So that's something that definitely was included, something that you can go over with your participants as well. Setting goals in your new job. So some people may just be getting a job just for the time being, but some people may really, really like their job and want to advance and, want to write out some goals for that position specifically. So if you help someone to get a position and they really, really like that position, definitely help them to write out some goals and some different steps that they can take towards those goals, different barriers and different support systems that they can use to make those things happen. Because a lot of the times just regular life gets in the way of your goals, and writing them out can be very helpful. Ethics in the workplace. A lot of people don't know what ethics is. So it's important to point out, that one person's ethical perspective is not necessarily going to be the same as another person's, and it's not always going to be good versus bad. It might be kind of good versus kind of bad. And so recognizing that with your participants and letting them know that those are obstacles that they may potentially face is definitely something that will help them in the future. Let's see. So just to go through your job readiness documentation, okay? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I want to talk about it again just to make sure. So if you guys have any questions, please chime in. Once again, we have the job readiness training completion form. This is one of the requirements for tracking your job readiness. So at the beginning, basically, you're going to fill out the basic program information. In the center, there's that area where you would put in the completion date for your financial literacy and the ONET profile. Now, what I would do, and I mean, everybody's workflow is different, right? So please let me know if I'm wrong. But what I would do immediately is just get that financial literacy and ONET profile done immediately. Because from what I saw on the ONET profile, that can help you lead into different activities and can also help you with your participant, getting them directed towards more of what they want. I mean, the ONET profile was pretty awesome to me. So I would do that right away just to get it done and then use that in your job readiness completion to help that person advance. We don't have a very specific requirement for the documentation that you would include for financial literacy in the ONET profile. And that's because everybody's is going to be different, right? Depending on, what you're doing for that person. So what we want is just some sort of supportive documentation. I think some of the financial literacy courses have certificates at the end of them. The ONET profile, you can print out the profile or whatever documentation you give to the participant. We just want something showing that you completed it in there. And please, like I said, stop me if you have any questions moving forward. So the training topics, so right under that is basically a listing of all the parts of the job readiness training that we just went through. There's a skill development and the job skills, the resume building, the interview prep, and the job sustainability. And then within that, there are different areas for you to check, different activity areas that you would be doing with them. Like I said, everybody has to have training in at least 3 topics. So say you did skill development, resume building, and interview prep, then you would just check next to what's closest to what you did with that participant. Going forward, there's also separate areas for you to write out activities, the time spent on those activities, and the date you completed those activities, because there are going to be different job readiness activities that you do outside of what's listed or that are a little bit different. Say, just for example, I think it was Diego, but someone was discussing how the Workforce Development Center, maybe you took someone over to the Workforce Development Center and took them through the process of getting registered there. Those aren't something that's going to be listed on the front of this job readiness for our personal job readiness, right? So you can write those activities here, the time spent you spent on that activity and the date that you completed that activity. That way it's a little bit more flexible, because we don't want you to say, oh, this is job readiness and this is just what you have to do. Like I said, those documents are used to kind of help you complete job readiness, but they're not the overall requirement for job readiness, right? You want to use those different things to help you complete different activities. So this is the area where you would list any kind of activities that you did with the participant like that. Oop, sorry, I went a little bit too fast. And then at the end, there's an area for referrals. So these are specifically for job readiness referrals, and that was a question that came up in one of our other trainings, is whether or not other referrals needed to be included in here. And the answer is absolutely not. These are just specific to your job readiness referrals, but also remember that can be very general too, right? So part of job readiness is helping people develop skills or maybe look into secondary education. Well, if that's the situation and you gave them a referral to, say, one of the community colleges to get information, you could include that in your job readiness, because that is a part of job readiness, is they're going in to develop or to advance their education, and part of that is part of job readiness. So that's something that you could include. So remember, just because it's not the norm in terms of referrals on job readiness, doesn't mean it doesn't belong there. And also, there's no requirement for these referrals. Now, definitely, do you want to write your referrals? Yes, because more than likely you're giving referrals anyway, so you might as well write them down. But there are 5 different spaces just in case you have more than one referral that you gave. Those 5 spaces aren't there because you're required to fill out 5 referrals. And then, of course, at the bottom, and I'm sorry, once again, excuse me, my voice is going out a little bit, so if you don't hear me, I will repeat it. The participant signature, and then, of course, the case manager's signatures are located at the bottom, and that's just to certify that you guys have completed the job readiness together. What you include for the participant is their certificate. Once again, like I said, that's in a Word document, so you should be able to go in and just put in the person's name and then sign and put the date on the bottom and provide that to them. You're going to give the participant a copy, and then you can go ahead and put a copy in the file for your records. So once again, those are 4 things that you're going to have in every file for your job readiness. That's going to be the completion form, supportive document for the ONET, supportive document for the financial literacy, and the certificate of completion. Are there any further questions about job readiness? And I'm looking in the chat too if you... Okay. Yay. Okay, well, let me know if you guys need to include anything. Let me know if you have any questions moving forward, because this is always a work in progress. Like I said, we want to make it great for the organization. Also, something to take with you as well, there will be a Spanish packet put together within the next month or so, hopefully quicker than that, but I'm giving myself a month to make sure. So if you are working with primarily Spanish speakers, that is something that we are addressing, and we will have a packet prepared for Spanish speakers only. So just be looking out for that. Another thing is look out for the training completion form so that I don't send you another invite. Because if you don't complete the training completion form, I'll think that I missed you, and I'll keep inviting you until I get one from you. So that should be sent here at the end of the day today. And thank you guys so much for joining my training.
Thank you, Felicia.
Of course, Diego. You guys have a good afternoon, okay?
You too.